What if I told you that America fought a secret war for 9 years that most Americans never knew existed? A war so classified that it was called the Secret War, where more bombs were dropped on a neutral country than were dropped on Germany and Japan combined during World War II. We're talking about Laos, a landlocked nation in Southeast Asia that became the most heavily bombed country per capita in human history. From 1964 to 1973, the CIA conducted covert operations while the U.S. Air Force dropped over 2 million tons of explosives. Yet this massive military campaign remained hidden from Congress and the American public for decades. If this sounds unbelievable, make sure you watch this entire video, because the evidence I'm about to show you will shock you completely. Welcome back to our Historical Mysteries series. Today, we're diving into one of America's most classified military operations, the Secret War in Laos from 1964 to 1973. This conflict ran parallel to the Vietnam War, but was completely hidden from public view. In this video, we'll uncover how the CIA built a secret army, how American pilots flew unmarked planes on classified missions, and how an entire war was fought without congressional approval. We'll explore the human cost of this hidden conflict and examine why it took decades for the truth to emerge. Most shocking of all, we'll discover how this secret war continues to kill innocent people even today, 50 years after it officially ended. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change how you view American foreign policy and government transparency forever. To understand this secret war, we need to go back to the early 1960s and the broader context of the Cold War in Southeast Asia. Laos, a small landlocked country between Vietnam and Thailand, had gained independence from France in 1954. The country was supposed to remain neutral, according to international agreements, but it quickly became a battleground in the larger Cold War struggle. The problem started with the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This wasn't actually a single trail, but a complex network of roads and paths that north. Vietnam used to supply communist forces fighting in South Vietnam. A significant portion of this supply route ran through eastern Laos, technically violating Laotian neutrality. President John F. Kennedy faced a dilemma in 1961. Direct military intervention in Laos would violate international law and potentially trigger a larger conflict with the Soviet Union and China, but allowing North Vietnam to freely use Laotian territory would give them a huge advantage in the Vietnam War. Kennedy's solution was typically Cold War era. If we can't fight openly, we'll fight secretly. The CIA was tasked with conducting covert operations in Laos under a program codenamed Operation Momentum. The official policy was to support the Royal Lao government against communist Pathet Lao forces. But the real objective was disrupting North Vietnamese supply lines along the Ho Chi Minh Trail by 1964. Under President Lyndon Johnson, this covert operation had expanded into a full-scale secret war. The CIA recruited a secret army primarily from the Hmong ethnic minority, led by General Vang Pao. These Hmong fighters, many just teenagers, were trained and equipped by American Special Forces advisors. Meanwhile, the U.S. Air Force began Operation Steel Tiger and later Operation Commando Hunt, massive bombing campaigns targeting the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But here's the crucial part. None of this was reported to Congress or the American public. Officially, America was respecting Laotian neutrality. In reality, American planes were dropping bombs on Laos every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 9 straight years. This is where the story becomes truly extraordinary. How do you fight a war that doesn't officially exist? The answer reveals the incredible lengths the American government went to maintain this secret. First, the bombing missions were conducted by unmarked aircraft. American pilots flew planes with no U.S. military markings, and if shot down, they carried no identification linking them to the U.S. military. Many of these pilots were technically civilian contractors working for Air America, a CIA front company that operated throughout Southeast Asia. The Hmong secret army was even more remarkable. General Vang Pao commanded over 40,000 fighters at the war's peak. These weren't regular soldiers. They were farmers, hunters, and villagers who became guerrilla fighters. The CIA provided weapons, training, and air support. But officially, these operations didn't exist. The human cost was staggering. Conservative estimates suggest that 200,000 Laotians died during this 9-year conflict. The Hmong people, who made up the core of the secret army, lost approximately 1/3 of their entire population. Entire villages were relocated or destroyed. But perhaps the most shocking aspect was the bombing campaign itself. In 1973, the U.S. dropped 2.5 million tons of explosives on Laos. To put this in perspective, that's more bombs than were dropped on Germany and Japan combined during all of World War II. Laos, with a population of only 3 million people, became the most heavily bombed country per capita in human history. The secrecy was maintained through careful compartmentalization. Different agencies handled different aspects of the operation. The CIA managed the secret army, the Air Force conducted bombing missions, and the State Department maintained the fiction of Laotian neutrality in diplomatic channels. Even within the government, many officials didn't know the full scope of operations. Congress was kept almost completely in the dark. When questioned about American activities in Laos, administration officials gave carefully worded responses that were technically true but deeply misleading. For example, they would say there were no American combat troops in Laos, which was true because the fighters were technically CA contractors or local forces. The cover-up worked remarkably well. American newspapers occasionally reported on mysterious bombing missions or rumors of CIA activities. But without official confirmation, these stories remained speculation. The secret war continued for 9 years with minimal public awareness. But why was such extreme secrecy necessary? Why couldn't the American government simply acknowledge military operations in Laos? Let's examine the different theories that explain this unprecedented level of secrecy and deception. Theory 1. Legal and constitutional issues. Direct military action in Laos without congressional approval would have been clearly unconstitutional. The War Powers Resolution didn't exist yet, but Congress still held the power to declare war. By keeping operations secret and using the CIA instead of the military, the administration avoided constitutional challenges. Theory 2. International law violations. The 1962 Geneva Accord specifically declared Laos neutral, and all foreign powers agreed to respect this neutrality. Open American military intervention would have been a clear violation of international law and could have justified similar violations by North Vietnam, China, or the Soviet Union. Theory 3. Domestic political calculations. The Vietnam War was already becoming unpopular by the mid-1960s, revealing a second, even larger bombing campaign in a neutral country would have created massive domestic opposition. The administration calculated that secrecy was essential for maintaining public support for the broader Vietnam effort. Theory 4. Escalation control. American leaders feared that open military operations in Laos might prompt direct Chinese or Soviet intervention, potentially triggering World War III. By keeping operations covert, they hoped to limit escalation while still achieving military objectives. The evidence supporting these theories comes from declassified documents released decades later. National Security Council memoranda from the Johnson and Nixon administrations clearly show officials discussing the need for secrecy to avoid domestic political problems and international complications. The Pentagon Papers, leaked in 1971, revealed some details about Laotian operations, but the full scope remained classified for years. Congressional investigations in the 1970s exposed the extent of CIA activities, leading to Senator Stuart Symington's famous comment that America had been conducting a war run by the CIA. But there's also evidence of operational justifications. Military commanders argued that secrecy was necessary for mission effectiveness. Open acknowledgement of bombing campaigns would have allowed North Vietnamese forces to better prepare countermeasures. However, critics argue that the secrecy served primarily to avoid accountability. Without public or congressional oversight, there were no checks on the scope or methods of operations. This led to increasingly extreme measures, including the targeting of civilian areas and the use of prohibited weapons. The most damning evidence comes from after-action reports and pilot testimonies that emerged years later. These documents reveal that American forces deliberately targeted civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, and refugee camps, under the justification that they might be supporting enemy forces. The legacy of America's secret war in Laos remains visible today. Laos is still contaminated with unexploded ordnance from the bombing campaign. Every year, dozens of Laotians, many of them children, are killed or injured by bombs that were dropped decades ago. The Hmong people, America's primary allies in the secret war, faced persecution and genocide after American withdrawal. Hundreds of thousands became refugees, with many eventually settling in the United States. But thousands more were left behind to face retribution from communist forces. Perhaps most importantly, the secret war in Laos established precedents for American covert operations that continue today. The use of unmarked drones, secret military contractors, and classified operations in countries where America isn't officially at war. These modern practices have direct roots in the Laotian operations of the 1960s and 70s. The question we must ask is this: in a democracy, can such extensive military operations be conducted without public knowledge or consent? The secret war in Laos suggests that the answer is yes, but at enormous cost to democratic accountability and human lives. Do you think the American government was justified in keeping this war secret for national security reasons? Or does democratic governance require public knowledge of military operations, regardless of the strategic implications? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This brings us to the end of today's investigation into America's secret war in Laos. The patterns of secrecy, covert operations, and hidden military interventions that we've explored today continue to shape American foreign policy. Understanding these historical precedents is crucial for making sense of modern conflicts and government actions. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more hidden truths from history. Ring the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the stories that governments don't want you to know. Till next time, keep questioning official narratives and always seek the complete truth.